Okay, guys. Well, office hours, dev heads. This is Friday, March 15th. Welcome once again. I'm happy to have everybody here. So here's our agenda for today: how to pick the right MCU, and then, of course, all of the other stuff we normally do every week. We'll start off with some introductions around who we are, what we do, what we're working on, and what we learned last week. And I'll go first. My name is Brandon. I've been a technology journalist for 13 years or so. And over the last week, I've been working on trying to get LinkedIn Live working, plus a bunch of other things. We're actually, we're in the final testing phases of the website, which is great for dev heads. We have seen some picked up activity, which is awesome. And I just keep learning every week to just be more patient. So that's me. Umesh, you want to go next?
Yeah. So hello, guys. This is Umesh. I'm Umesh, and I'm embedded system consultant. I deal with software and hardware, especially for IoT. It's been 10 plus years experience. This week, last week, I've been engaged in a lot of, site visits, architecting some solutions with very, very experienced and top-notch people. So yeah, that's pretty much about me. So what Brandon says, it's been busy. It's been busy at my end, but a lot of learning, building, solutioning happening. So thank you.
Cool. Shrisha, you're up.
Hi everyone, I'm Shrisha. I'm from Bangalore, India. So I'm an embedded engineer. I've been working for about 2 years now. So I guess that's about it about me.
Cool. Navdeep, you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm an electronic design engineer working high level working around embedded systems and FPGAs.
Cool. Abhishek, you want to go? Can't hear you. But we'll come back to you. And then Christoph, you want to say hi?
Yep. Hi. So I'm Christoph. I'm a co-founder of MBeatle IDE, an IDE for microcontrollers.
Cool. And those of you who are just on chat, you just say hi in the chat. That'd be cool. Anyway, so today's topic is how you pick the right MCU. And this is something that comes up in pretty much every design at one point in time or another. I want to get your guys' feedback and your take before we get into the problem statements that I mentioned a little bit earlier. I want to get your take on how you go about determining what's the right architecture and what's the right SKU when you start out a design. Now, everybody has their preferences, and there are certain ways that are easier than others to get started. For example, Arduino is a sort of no-brainer platform to start on, to prototype. But sooner or later, especially if you're building a commercial system, you're going to need to consider what the most optimal solution is. And for some of you pros in the audience, and I specifically wanted to start with Navdeep on this one, just because you have such a broad range of expertise or a familiarity with different architectures. In your experience, what's the process like when you go to select the right MCU for your design?
Right. That's a very broad-ended, and both the sides are uncapped. So that's a good question to start with, and it always comes when anyone starts his product development. So keeping microcontroller for product development in the core, I usually identify it using 4 pillars. Before that 4 pillar, it's good to know that none of the MCU is perfect, and there is always a trade-off between these 4 pillars, which you have to draw a fine line between based on what is the application. So starting with the first being the processing and what type of acceleration you want, whatever processing power you want. So that would go into choosing the core, what type of core you want, what type of architecture. Then comes the connectivity and peripherals, what you have. If you want any radio communication, radio interfaces within the MCU, then there are certain system on chips coming with integrated radio modules and stuff like that, and then also peripherals. So do you want CAN, or are you into automotive solution? Do you want how many SPI I2C peripherals do you want, the serial stuff, and those, and of course there are multiple other kind of peripherals to look at. So so we have seen the processing, then the peripherals, then comes the power consumption. So MCU is always highly likely used whenever your solution do not need such a great processing power, but it's a constrained environment and you want to optimize on both the processing and also the power. So power consumption is something to be concentrated and look at if that's what solution demands, which is evident in most of the solutions like IoT or wearables, mobile devices, or something. Who doesn't want longer battery life, right? So yeah. And the final one with these four major ones are the tools and support. So how well is the tool chain to develop with? What is the user base, right? How well is the support the company provides? What type of drivers, libraries are available? Because while developing a product, highly likely no one wants to start from scratch, right? Starting register level programming, building APIs, and then the building application layer. People always try to find what is easy for them and what is best for them, what is optimized for the solution. And a lot of vendors these days are good with providing hardware abstraction layers, middlewares, and even the application examples. So yeah, this is what I bind the whole solution of finding your MCU with.
So, I think you started touching on it there at the end, which is a big question, which is, what about the familiarity, right? Your comfort level with whatever the architecture is, right? And at what point does that become something that's an advantage and turn into a disadvantage? So you and I had a conversation a long time ago in the chat when somebody introduced this Renaissance SoC, right? And it was sort of like, well, in these application spaces, this isn't really used that much. Is it the best solution for the job? Maybe, maybe not, but people aren't really that familiar with it. So at what point does that become a gift and a curse? Like, how much do you consider that when you're getting started, Navdeep?
Yeah. That's a arbitrage thing, right? So always people get biased and lost in this. And even every time I go to think about developing something, I hop on to say, oh, I will use this because I've used it in 5 other projects of mine, right? We always try to jump into comfort zone, but that might not be always good for the product or solution because few people are very good with community support, right? If I could call them names, like TI community is great, extensive. You can get your queries resolved quickly and whatever things you have to explore about your MCU questions. The forum is quite tight and active as well. And but the libraries and drivers, they're not easy to use or not that intuitive. While if you come to ST, they have a very great support, like tools support, and as well the application examples, drivers, or whatever you say, right? The IDE itself is quite intuitive and user friendly, but community support not that great, right? So these are the things where fine line has to be drawn. And what I found is it's always with the development time. Do you want to get something, a proof of concept or a final product into place, right? If it is just a proof of concept, then go with your comfort, use the peripherals, use the controller which you're familiar with, and get it in place. Otherwise, while getting a product in the market, it's always good. Solution is optimized for power and other things, keeping development in the corner or giving like second priority to it, because development once done is done, and it's worth it if you give that amount of time for optimizing the power, cost, size, or whatever.
Yeah, Christoph?
Yeah. We did some research about this topic, how engineers select an MCU, because it's quite crucial to our whole business model. It's part of the pitch when we go to a microcontroller company, and we want to sell them the support of Beetle for all of their microcontrollers, then we want to convince them, of course, that having good software support for their microcontrollers will have a big impact on their sales. So what we found is something. Maybe I can share my display for this. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, can you guys see this? Yep. Okay, so what you see here is basically the results of an Aspen Core study from 2019, and it's about how engineers choose the microcontroller for the next project. And as you can see, the actual hardware of the microcontroller, of course, plays a role, but the most important asset is the ecosystem. And the ecosystem, it's everything around the microcontroller, the software, the tools, the support, the community, everything around it. And it's not my intention to give a pitch for Beetle here, but that's what we're trying to come up with, to provide for the microcontroller vendors this ecosystem. And that's what makes the microcontroller popular.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. And I think that's that's really the question here, which is, a lot of the big MCU vendors, at least in, Europe and the States, they have these super robust ecosystems and software stacks and tool chains that they've built up over the years. And it's almost to the point, and that's where my question to Navdeep was, it's almost to the point where it doesn't really matter, right? The hardware ultimately might not matter depending on what the application is, right? Because if you're already familiar here, they're going to have some comparative skew, between ST and NXP and microchip, right? There's going to be something that likely plays in the class. How much does it really matter for you to get that little bit less power, right, Navdeep, or like a little bit less cost? Is it going to be worth you transitioning off of off of this environment? Your entire company may be built around this environment. And the person I'd ask that question to is Umesh. When is how do you get through that barrier?
So I'm pretty conservative in a way I choose my devices. It's not because I started with AVR and it's very early on, but for me, in the commercial and professional delivery settings, it's very important you have to deliver on the time. So sometimes I may not be very critical on the technical aspect of that. Let's say in my company or at my decision making, I have designed the firmware packages in a way that it will suit to my requirements. So one end you have products from the microchips which will be quick turn for me because we have several years of experience on that, because that also matters how much experience you are and your resources are also, not only you or one or two, because you need whole ecosystem to be trained in a way. And then other one is for some MCUs which are unique in the market because they have such a user community and a lot of experts talking about the features. So let's say some features you have in some TI's chip like CC3200 or something like that, which is very popular Wi-Fi chip. But then if you don't have experts talking, showing, then it's very difficult to even explore some of the critical and very important features to explore because it costs you time. So in my personal opinion, I always see that what helps me to go to time to market, and of course what's all the topics, whether it's a technical aspect or the availability or the solutioning part of it, which maybe Navdeep has touched on that. So I choose devices in a way that how my resources and my insight skills are trained for. And then another aspect to that is how big the user community and how open people are talking about its feature. Because if there are features but there is no supportive documents enough, then it's a risk putting 6 months to implement the features, and then even if the power consumption, you reach to the same point which the other your MCUs is giving. So you ended up wasting a lot of your time, and maybe sometimes skills also matter. So I think I choose it that way. So
Great. Shrisha, since a lot of this came from you, what's your perspective here? How do you, have you seen? Oh, is Shrisha still here? Did he drop? Oh, it looks like he got disconnected. Oh, maybe now he's back. So, Shrisha, if you can hear me, I was just going to pose the same question to you about how you go about selecting a device. But it does seem like there's some. Oh, Christoph, could you stop sharing your screen real quick? I'll go back to the problem statement that we had.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So how do I share this? Oh, yeah.
There
Okay.
you go. Hey, Shrisha, you're all blacked out, but I actually just asked you the same question. Since you're the problem statement guy, what's your experience with? Yeah, I know you got your. There you go. There you go. So you're muted. You're muted, Trisha. There you go.
Sorry.
It's okay. So the question is, Trisha, same question to you. When you're going through picking out the right MCU architecture for your design, how do you do it? What are your steps? We've heard from Umesh, we've heard from Navadeep, we've heard a little bit from Christoph even. What's your process?
So I mostly look for resources. So it's most of the time it would be resources. So always I try to find resources like all the libraries available for me. If the subcomponents, if I'm using some kind of a new sensor, or if it's a software stack, middleware, some kind of a middleware, is it available for me? Which is a platform which that is available. Sometimes the MCU is more costlier than the cheaper version available in the market, but still I would select the costlier MCU simply because it would be quick to develop and to prototype. Maybe after prototyping, after POC, I have some kind of product ready to please anyone who has to be pleased. So then maybe I will think about, okay, cost reduction, where can I cost reduce things? So that would be my thought process at least when starting. So some of the times, if the POC can't be proved in the readily available resource market, then it's no point going to some obscure microcontroller, because there are too many microcontrollers nowadays. So I would say like stick to one, like 3 or 4, and then be very good at it. So one for very POC kind of a situation, maybe like Arduino environment, where you can quickly develop something, and at least to prove yourself that the product will work and what are the challenges there. Then you might go to technical details. Okay, where can I save power? How can I save power? Or should it need increased processing power? Okay, then probably even till the board development point, I would say probably go with the Arduino environment kind of a situation, because at that time you can switch over to the vendor specific IDEs. Then because all the most highly popular microcontrollers are available for my Arduino right now, so the development is, then you can think about code optimization, power optimization, all those extra procedures after development of POC, and also board design as well. So it's not about like, should I stick with the one thing like old school? So okay, I have a 8051, I will stick with the 8051. No. And like entire development, entire tool chain, no. Like I would say like hop around, maybe a multi-platform kind of a microcontroller where I have multiple options. Maybe because my experience was like I was developing a product. It was related to IR basically. So IR, transmission and receiving. So I started with IDF. I set up the IDF and everything was done. But the thing was like I had needed to add a library and I did not know how. And I knew like it will take a lot of time even to learn to integrate that component. So I went back to Arduino, I jumped back, and it was like the libraries were available. I got everything done, and I got the entire product POC done. So the next person who is probably going to do on a cost reduced microcontroller, he will have to worry about all the things now. So my POC, I was supposed to develop a POC and get the probably it has a mobile app, so the mobile app process running. So my basically POC can work as a product for my mobile developer. So that is also a thing. So right now another engineer will take over the project. He will optimize the cost. He will try to develop it in a cost effective microcontroller, I would say. Yeah, we have to see how that will go. Yeah, that is my experience to date.
So, Navadeep, how about you? Like, do you always start off on Arduino or Raspberry Pi or something like that, and then see, get it running, and then make the switch?
Um, yeah, I mean, often if it's a POC, yes, hobby project also, but generally the one which is like a marketable product also. At the initial stage, it's easy to streamline it. So thinking what is your product requirement. If IoT, then go with like look at these pillars which I mentioned and go what you want. If IoT, then you have to double down on your attention on the network and communication stuff along with power consumption. So I go with the specification first approach and then choose the platform whatever it is, because in the market there are multiple microcontrollers and each have their unique features, right? If you want to go with variables, low power optimized, Nordic Semi has great controllers, Silicon Labs has great controllers. They are EFR BG22, they are benchmarked and the epitome of low power microcontrollers in the industry. So and if you want to do something with high processing power and multi-core and stuff like that, ST has some great ones, and even TI if you want to do low power ones. So yeah, look into what is the requirement. Look at three pillars related to power, processing, and peripherals which you want. If the application is automotive and small footprint, Renesas has some great controllers. They are optimized for they come with automotive certification, AES 200 and stuff like that. So yeah, these are what I would focus on, and then go what do I have to learn and what do I have to do, or what is the development process required for building solutions around these controllers.
How about you, Umesh? I mean, you're working with a lot of clients sometimes, so you've got to say general purpose and then be able to deep dive into specifics. So, how do you approach it?
I think, to be honest, the price of the microcontroller doesn't matter so much to me. Okay, because I don't. It's not always price optimization as well, but I completely agree what Srisha says. That's the philosophy I also follow, and not always necessary that Arduino we should have to put in. Like if you are like 4 or 5 years maybe in developing firmware for certain specific industry, like let's say IoT, in case you have this stack written for MQTT or something for very you know uh, some controllers which are like ST or maybe some from microchip, right? So even if you don't use Arduino framework, if your customer doesn't or your client doesn't want you to use Arduino framework, but still you have because you reuse your IP cores, or if you go with little bit expensive microcontroller, but then some IP core you can license from some other companies, I think that is also good options. But my focus always be saving a time in early days, because time is very very critical component. And price optimization, power is very different area, and very special industry where you look for power specific, right? Controllers. So if you are about power, then maybe in the beginning itself you have to make a decision, like what Navdeep says, like you go with Renaissance or something. But if it's a generic like consumer or industrial IoT or something, especially let's talk about industrial IoT, maybe it's not very big problem for power optimized, right? Because you have a lot of opportunity in a plant where you can power up. So if it's not a battery operated all the time, so I think uh, the readiness of the driver is, I think, very very important, because if it costs you more time to develop those drivers, it will be very very expensive in terms of time to come to the market or maybe commercialize, because entire cycles revolve around that delivery. So I think driver, I would say the readiness of the driver, and we have seen the Arduino formula or the Raspberry Pi formula really where it is right now is because of that, right? So community, ecosystem, good documentations, and we have seen all the controllers. And pretty much if we take people from the industry, if they are not building very special purpose product, like let's say defense or healthcare or maybe some special industrial applications, I think I end up seeing many people using the similar sort of microcontrollers. So not really, if we want to switch from one MCU to other MCU, sometimes we also have to make sure whether making the decision to even to think of reading, learning, making decision, does this worth the time? Because what then end up happening, this MCU vendors, they are giving pretty much same features now with the same price. I mean, 2-3 cents just doesn't make that much difference, if you have a price tag that can convince your client, okay, you are in a safe boat in a long run, even certifications and the product safety and all other things. So I think price would not be very big of a problem. Yeah, if you go for specific industry like automotive or low power optimization, then there is certainly a point to think. But I think many companies in very early days itself makes that decision which direction they want to go, and maybe many people just don't take the projects. Let's say we never work with automotive parts manufacturer, we might deal with, we may often deal with, but not the actual solution that we can put on vehicles. So I think that's define what kind of industry that we are working on. And I think one more thing which nobody talk here is depends on what kind of solution or market we are addressing. So maybe I didn't talk because I never built or supply any consumer product. So let's say home automation or this segment is not my segment. Maybe there it makes more sense to look for price. So I think we have to see this way. But I think this driver readiness is very, very important. And one more thing, like if you are building business around, you have to see what if your top-notch engineer left the company. So you also have to see the market readiness which you hire, because it's big pain you have to deal with. So I think that part is also very important if somebody is entrepreneur.
Well, that's awesome. So, a couple of the key points that got brought out there are in these air quotes problem statements, right? We've got a couple of different designs, or potential designs from people in the community, and both of them actually stated, I want to start on ESP32 or ESP8266, right? It's already like they don't have anything, and they're already starting there, which is great, right? Because it's like, look, there's a lot of documentation out there. There's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of support. So that's great. So Navdeep, this is a situation where, is this the tail wagging the dog, right? Like it's already a foregone conclusion that one of them is a Wi-Fi clock, right? And one of them is some sort of, short range communication device. Is it already, it's our predetermined before you even start that it's going to be ESP, right? And who cares? Like, so why even go through the process of looking through your 4 pillars, right? Does that happen a lot or too much maybe?
Yeah, I would say these are the things, you're asking while developing certain solutions, if it is known that you're going to use USB, or if you're developing IoT solution, you would directly jump onto USB. Is the thing you're asking? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that arrives at from one of the pillars, right? So you look at what your product wants, and if the product wants to be having a connectivity peripheral within, you don't want to add additional external radio chip, or a lot of microcontrollers these days come with inbuilt radio, right? For example, Nordic has some great NRF 54 series with ARM Cortex M4 and also ARM Cortex M0 controlling the radio unit. So everything comes in a single package SoC. So yeah, again, I would say it's important to look at what are other subsidiary hanging things along with what you want, and definitely there are instances when you think, okay, ESP is the best suitable for this product, or say, okay, I'm going to use ST for this product. Yeah, that's it. While a person is so proficient in certain environment, do tool chain, and always wants to go with that, but that might not always be the optimal thing, right? For the reason that it will be good for the development, for the revenue, for the market, it will fit the product also.
Great. Thanks for that. Abhishek, you're developing in Linux a lot of the time, so your options may be less broad than some of the rest of us. What's your take on this entire topic of how you choose the right maybe MPU architecture? What do you have a process you go through, or is it just sort of what the boss says? How do you pick? I can't hear you. Oh,
Hello.
there you go. There you go.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know, something, some issues with the mic, it seems. Yeah. So what happens with the MPU is you see the readiness of the software. Basically, if you already have an application, let's say you have a camera application or a platform based, like let's say a hub application, then it's not so generalized, because like what happens in the MPU world is every application has its own chip. So if you want a camera application, you will get a camera chip with the camera features inside that. If you want a hub or like a what do you call, like BLE hub these days are coming, so you will get specific chips. Let's say TWS you want on your application, true wireless connectivity, so you will get that specific chip. Next, I mean, you do not need to build everything from scratch. So there the cost reduction and the time reduction happens in the straight one shot. Then it's like how much do you trust your developers, or like how much your developers know the technology, because it's going to be different, it's going to be completely different what they have worked upon before, because directly these things are coming from one source, we all know that. And at the end of the day, it would be tricky to communicate with them. So what I would suggest is, if you trust your developers, go with the optimized solution which is available. If you do not, or if you think like it's going to take time, then go with the generic solution, build it upon step by step, and then you can figure out in the whole process. so, so that's like a in general way, like what I have experienced in my scenario.
Perfect. Jesus, I know you're off camera and your mic's muted, but if you have anything you'd like to say, feel free to jump in. Purnima as well in the chat, if you got anything you'd like to ask or questions of the panel here, just feel free to drop it into the chat. While you guys are mulling some things over, Christoph, so in all of your research, what MCU should everybody be targeting? I mean, you did all this research to figure out. It's like, let's tell us what we should all learn.
I think there's no one fits all MCU, and in most cases, people go for what they're familiar with, and that's fine. That's okay, because it's the hard reality is that when you have to start on a project, usually there's a lot of time pressure, and to overcome that, to win some time, you take something that you have already experience with. But yeah, in some cases you have to try something new, maybe just to learn something, or maybe because the project you're gonna do requires a kind of MCU that you haven't any experience with. And then I believe that the ecosystem is actually the most important aspect. That's also what we see in the studies, that people really that the ecosystem has the largest impact on the choice of MCU. And well, of course, I mean, I'm co-founder of MBeatle, so obviously I'm going to say, well, if you can use it in an IDE that can really help you to be productive, then that's a big bonus, for sure. Um, yeah.
Cool.
And ecosystem means also documentation. The MCU should be well documented. It's not always, how to say it, it's not always obvious. Many MCUs have not that great documentation. It's really a painful thing. Yeah, that's my
Cool.
2 cents.
Thanks for that. Umesh, you want to go?
Yeah, I just have a question because I think many of us as an embedded engineer might would like more to know from Christoph is how much in your research you realize that the tools that supports for the Linux is responsible, because usually you see
Mhm.
an IDE supports for Windows. How many developer feel that the support for Linux, I mean desktop operating system, for the firmware development is responsible for making selection of their microcontroller and overall resources and documentation around the microcontroller?
Yeah, a very good question. Well, we have noticed there are basically 2 kinds of developers when it comes to embedded. And this is a big generalization, but but still an interesting one. So you have those people who come from a software background and somehow stumble into embedded, and then there are those people who come from a hardware background, and they have a very different perspective. And usually, not always, but usually, people from the software background have a lot of Linux experience and usually prefer to work on Linux instead of Windows. Those are usually people that only work on Windows if they really should. Otherwise, they use Linux in their day-to-day work. Then the people coming from the hardware background are usually working on Windows still, because in hardware development, that's changing now, but still there's a long time that most hardware tools, hardware development tools, were Windows only. And these are people who, yeah, that's what we noticed. These are usually Windows people. And a good it's important that an MCU can be used by both types of people, those coming from the software background and those coming from the hardware background. That's why even in a team, that it's best that you select an MCU that can be used in an IDE that works on both Windows and Linux, such that people coming from both sides can work together. That's also one of the reasons that we put a lot of effort in this in MBeatle IDE to make sure that it works both on Windows and Linux. And then there's macOS. We're also gonna work on that, but we don't have the time right now to do that. But it's certainly in the pipeline. Yeah. And now I think I lost your question. So can you remind me if I already answered it, or sorry?
Yeah, my question was like, how much you think is responsible for, I mean, the decision of choosing microcontroller based on the user that uses Linux as their primary operating system? Because maybe sometimes some Linux users will come and say, okay, this microcontroller doesn't have the Linux tools, and no, thank you very much, right?
Yeah,
Because some people
absolutely.
I've seen, like one guy that I have hired, he is so comfortable with makefiles, and he says like, hey, this doesn't have this makefile stuff, what the hell he was looking everything ecosystem and saying, okay, you're just playing the kids game. And I said, no, it's not a kids game. And that's where that's happening, what you are saying, because he comes from the background where he see, if it's not a makefile project, it's just the kids playing some summer holiday project. So then I I mean, of course, then you have to also have to look for other people who work around that project, and then your project base starts changing because that whole project is moving from Windows environment to the Linux makefile project. So how much it is responsible for microcontrollers to be compatible with or availability with the Linux devices. I mean,
Very
ideally,
much, very much, because as you said correctly, people who come, people coming from the software background, and many of them are really working on Linux day to day and don't want to switch to Windows, and that's, of course, that's their right to do so. And these people are they're not going to change to Windows just to use an MCU. They would rather change the MCU, and
Yeah.
stay working on Linux. It's and vice versa. The same people. Those are people, mostly the hardware guys, very comfortable on Windows, and they're not going to change to Linux just to use an MCU. They want to stay on Windows. People want to stay with what they're comfortable with, and that's fine. And it's the task of the tools developers. Like, well, we are a tool developer, and there are many tool developers out there. It's our responsibility to make sure that these people can stay in the environment they're comfortable with, and that our tools just work for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I have a question specifically for Navdeep. Do you think we could apply your 4 pillars in the next 10 minutes and pick out a microprocessor for this Wi-Fi clock?
Yeah. I was trying to type that in, but yeah, okay. Let's jump to it.
Do you want to try it?
Here's the set of rules. Here is a problem. Crash.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see if we can. What should I do? Go to like DigiKey and see if I can pull up pull up a microprocessor that we want to pick.
Yeah, sure. Okay, DigiKey and pick a microprocessor. Or okay, first we'll set the specifications, right? So say you want to build a Wi-Fi clock. So typically, I heard the word Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi connectivity, you need to double down on that. Then you say processing and acceleration. That's the first thing to look at. So processing, how much do you need? It's fairly lower. Atmel 8051 can do it. You just want to run a clock, like a counter time, or whatever you want. And because Wi-Fi is there, you might want to maintain the network protocol and stuff like that, your access. And if you do want this access, connecting to a network, authentication and stuff like that. Then, so I'm rating processing to be like fairly low to mid range, because we have seen like normal ESP can do it, or Arduino you can do it over there. And then comes the power consumption. Is it of concern? Is the question. Are you running this clock over button cell, or are you running it over?
Let's assume that it's wire. It's hardwired. It's using AC mains, so it's plugged in.
Yeah, AC main. So yeah, power consumption is out of your boundary. Still, it's not like it can consume 10 amps because you're consuming plug to the mains. But yeah, it's not of. We shouldn't be too concerned about it because it's connected to the mains. Not optimized. Why to spend money on optimizing power when you have plenty of power, right? And then toolchain and support, that's a thing to look at definitely. That's when the experience of a person, or if the person has polarity towards any particular toolchain, or if a person has polarity towards, or if a person has experience around any particular microcontroller, comes in. If not, then look at other things and pick a particular controller. Right?
Well, let's use you as an example here, toolchain wise. What are you looking for, you specifically?
Yeah, me. See, if I want to build this right away, given specifications, then I know it should have Wi-Fi. And looking at my ease and comfort, I'll go with ESP32. Right?
That's like exactly what I didn't want you to do.
Yeah, if not, yeah.
Yep.
So that's the thing. And say I okay, if not, there are certain other solutions. If you want to optimize on power, or if you want to optimize on processing, then there are certain Nordic semiconductor chips. I will go with NRF54 controllers, or then it again depends on what you want to optimize with, along with connectivity, right?
Right. Yeah, very good. Okay, so let's just recap really quickly. Obviously, we need Wi-Fi support. It's got to be, low to mid-range processing. We can sort of draw a box around that when we get to it. We want there to be, it's going to be mains powered, and then the tool chain can be, something that's sort of connectivity inclined, right? I guess we'd say that. If it's a weekend project or commercial project, this is going to be a commercial project. So this is a very, very stale beginning, Shrisha. Thank you for adding those time and scale to the project. So let's see, scale. Eventually we want to be selling what do we want to sell in the 6 figures of these or 5 figures? Who says? Let's say 6 figures. Okay. And then what's a reasonable project timeline? Umesh, what do you think this should take us?
Yeah, another thing that we can project a commercial project, that's a good thing added over there. So
With
if we can project, go
ESP32.
with your comfort.
Yep.
Go with your
Okay.
comfort.
With
Commercial
ESP32, you
project.
can. Sorry. Go ahead, Navdeep.
Yeah, setting, keeping weights onto these two, right? We can project a commercial project. If commercial, then you got to see what are the profits, right? Of course, deploying it in 100,000 volumes. You should see which vendor provides you at best price and what can you optimize on, like lowest development time and sort of what Umesh particularly mentioned.
So, Umesh, project timeline, what do you think? Let's just consider the costs are the same.
Okay. With experience ESP32 person, 3 weeks.
So let's say, all right, 1 month.
Because I believe it's a commercial product, so you will have a nice, beautiful casing, and it will also involve some of the experiments that would go. I mean, I'm talking about full time putting on this project. Okay, maybe some people will say, and that too, we are considering that lot of libraries is ready. You're not developing drivers for that. I mean, whether you're pulling the time information from the web, or I mean I'm not considering you're using RTC or something like that inside of that. So I'm just thinking like the ecosystem that for Wi-Fi built around ESP32 is really remarkable. But if you just change the microcontroller, then maybe I would add 2 weeks, because I don't know which SoC somebody would gonna use it, and then how experienced they are. Because in Wi-Fi world, most of our people are experienced ESP32 only. I mean, whether we like it or not, that's a different story. But that's how the market is shaping too.
So Navdeep, we've got some groundwork here. So now what do? You just go to, do you have a favorite distributor, or do you just go straight to the ESP32 website or the ESP Espresso website and pick a flavor? Like, what's your next step?
With the ESP32, if it's a commercial project, then I'll give second thought to thinking whether ESP32 or do I have any other options. Right?
Okay,
so
then Nordic.
It's
Nordic now. Okay, we're gonna go with the Nordic SKU. Now what? Now what do you do?
Yeah. So once I pick the controller, then looking at, of course, you want to procure it. So contact a bunch of vendors.
Sorry, not that far yet. Not that far yet. We've identified. So now we're at the part where it's like, okay, we understand that these are our basic requirements, right? These are our outlined requirements. Now we want to go pick an actual SKU. Like, we want to go pick the exact Nordic part that we're looking for. Yeah.
Oh, you're telling like that. Okay.
Yeah. So
because
what's your
the
process
previous conversion was. Well, yeah. Once you know, I would be around this particular family of controllers or NRF series. Then go to a distributor, say Digital Mouse, and then look at whatever offerings they have. Or before that, you can of course go to the Nordic website itself and see what is under their solution. So if I open it right away, I'll just say Nordic NRF 52 series. So that's one of their not too new,
you want to share your
but
screen?
where a lot of development has happened. Yeah, I'll do that. It's up, right?
Yep.
Okay. So here, going to Wi-Fi, and then you find what all products they have. They have it starting from the newer series to all the way down to and the 5.3, 5.2, and uh, 5.2 would have look at what features do you want. So once this 64 megahertz ARM-Cortex M4, ARM-Cortex M33. So what would be the best point? So looking at Wi-Fi clock example, you wouldn't need like a Cortex M33 running at this 108 megahertz, or you will have this is something cellular, or even on top. These are low power, security optimized
Right.
stuff. So I would go with the lower end offering of it. Right. I still do not know the cost, so I'm shortlisting based on what is overkill, what is not overkill. Then once I'm here, this looks like a good point for me to dig deeper, look at what all features it has. The frequency band, does it support 5 gigahertz or just 2.4, and do I want 5 gigahertz? Then look at what peripherals are there. Say Wi-Fi clock, I might want a display, or I might want like a pixelated new pixel or sort of it, where I will display the numbers. So does it have enough IO lines where I can multiplex and use these type of LED pixels, or does it have SPI if I'm using a TFT display? So these things being sorted. Do I have any feature? Is this controller capitalizing on any feature which I do not want? Likely there are some features like Zigbee, NFC, Bluetooth mesh, and these things which I am not using. Then you further go down and see what further do they have any cut down in their parts? Do they have different distributions within the same part number?
Exactly.
If you look at few of the ESP, then it will have ESP C series, S series, ES series, and stuff like that. So look at all those, and then go to the distributor, look at what distributor's price offerings are, and then negotiate for the lowest cost. And yeah, that's what would be the typical flow.
So we got ourselves way down for the Wi-Fi clock. If we want to make something commercial, down into some NRF 5000 series, right? Part. Where were we at? I don't know. NRF. I'll go look at it in the recording. But this is a good way to get started, right? And there are a lot of different considerations, and a good sort of method, like you always have, Navdeep, of like just put some rules in place and then follow the rules, right? It shouldn't lead you astray.
Yeah,
cool.
But also a very important thing to look at here is, one thing I would have mentioned here is this. I have to look at what Wi-Fi it has. I see it has Bluetooth low energy. I don't think it has Wi-Fi over here, so I might have to look at other offerings.
Oh, that one didn't have Wi-Fi? I thought we were looking at 2.4 or 5 gigahertz, but that was just for Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I noticed that in the last part.
well, maybe
this is one thing. See, this is a mistake.
Good enough, fair enough. But we got ourselves. Is that chip compatible with LoRaWAN? I doubt it is. Jesus, there's a pretty narrow group of
5240. Yeah, we have the table here.
Let's see. So no, is there a LoRaWAN? Is that represented there? I don't think so. Or it might be under. Might be. No, I don't think so. It's just cellular. I don't even know if Nordic does any LoRaWAN stuff.
LoRaWAN, not which. I used the ST solution. Nordic.
Yeah, I think they're mostly cellular. Anyway, well, Navdeep and all you guys, I really appreciate your time. Oh, there's a
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
52832.
52832. Okay. Hope that helps.
These are classical form factors for those modules. LoRaWAN modules come with this type of like sort of carrier card or system on module type thing, where it exposes all the peripherals, and some come with inbuilt antenna, ceramic chip antenna. Some have, I think this most likely has a, I see a coplanar waveguide capped. So you would have to extend this, put a matching network and extend it. But yeah, that sort of.
Cool. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. You're always a wealth of knowledge, Navdeep. So, you're welcome. So I've actually got a quick question. So there are a couple of things on here, specifically 1, 2, and 3, that have been listed for a while. Fail porting LVGL, TSP32, and then using an IMU to determine angular orientation. That's a tough one. And then I think one that we could probably solve is this HTTP request example for Raspberry Pi Pico. If you guys are familiar with any of these problems and you want to jump in, let me know. If we go any further, I'll definitely put a bounty on it of some kind. We've got office hours coming up every week. Next week, when to use an OS and when not to. Then after that, how to pick a programming language. And then I've got to talk to Petter about Ohm's Law and see if he's still available to do that, because I know this is right before we're all going on a big trip. We got some demos coming up. We tried to get one out this week, but we had some problems with the video file. So sorry about that. But there will be one next week on MQTT topic structures. Still got learning hours, which actually we're going to change the name of, I believe, to engineering hour. But the mesh is starting in about 10 days. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be doing a lot of promotion around that coming up next week. Website will be live in about a week. We're in final testing right now. So this is going to be some great juice for the community. So thank you guys all for your patience on that one. Still talking to Pallav about Bangalore meetup, but he made some progress with a specific center there. So that sounds promising. I'll let you know about that, Navdeep, in a second, or after the call. Does anybody have anything that they need for the community, for or from the community? Speak now. Let us know. Questions, concerns, ideas, thoughts, tips, tricks, anything in particular? Cool.
Okay, so hello. I'm
Hey.
audible again. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a vague proposal, but can we shift the time from Friday to Thursday or any other day of the week?
So
Daily
I was actually just going to ask. Everybody just switched time, except in where I live, we don't change time. So is this now an hour later? What time is this happening for you guys? An hour later than normal?
No, I mean the day itself, like the time is fine for me.
No. I know. The first question I'm going to ask is, did the time change like an hour forward or backward from the normal time it was for you guys? No?
No.
It does change.
No.
Okay.
It does not change for us. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm an hour earlier than I was before, so yeah. Okay, so there's that, and then you're asking if we can change the day of the week. So we got to this via a vote, is how we landed on this time. And if you want to lead a faction to vote against this time, then you're more than willing to, or you're more than able to. We're happy to, if it's basically just what's convenient for the most people, right? So if it's convenient for the most people, we'll change the time. So if you want us to run a poll, let me know some times that you think would work better, and we'll put a poll up.
Yeah, like we can put a poll if.
You just muted yourself.
Yeah, we can make a poll, I think. Let's say Thursday itself, like Thursday or Friday, we can have a poll like, share boy. Am I audible?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah. So we can put a poll on Friday or Thursday, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's it. Like that's the only thing. Because like what happens is it's Friday and it's the weekend, so and that too in the evening. So
so you want to party? I get it.
Yeah, basically that happens a little. So I mean, we kind of
has got tight weekend plans.
We can it can become a weekend plan. That's what this thing was. But any other day is also okay for me. But I mean, I just put a concern there. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put a vote up. We'll put it to a vote. So I'll just say same time Thursday or Friday. Thank you for that. Any suggestions on getting better by 1% next week?
I think without getting a suggestion, we have gotten probably 1% better. This good format of running office hours, thanks for making it this way, because I mean it just technically gets to a point where everyone's experience comes around, and like Umesh was giving some excellent points, Srisha and Sweep. So yeah, it's a good format, and taking these type of use cases and running around them will really help people who are going to build certain things, or even for example, this question was an actual question put up by some person, and then that is taken as a input over here and rounded around. So yeah, that's a good format, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said, this all came from Srisha, so thank you, Srisha, because without knowing it, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. So good job, dude. All right. We've got always our resources here. If you want to check them out, they're on slide 12. Next meeting is a week from today, and in the interim, we'll put a poll up per Abhishek's request. But remember, next Sunday, not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after, is going to be the first engineering hour with Umesh. So that's the 24th. So you won't want to miss that. But if there's nothing else, I really appreciate you guys' time and your participation. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.